Now joining me, WBAL color analyst, former Baltimore Raven, and Super Bowl champion, my great friend, Qadry Ismail, Zach Gelb, PureShovio.com. Thank you so much for joining me, and how are you this evening?
Zach, I'm doing well, man. I'm sitting here going over some notes for this big Jets-Ravens showdown that's coming up Sunday night.
Yeah, it's going to be a great game on Sunday Night Football. The Jets coming off a loss to Oakland and the Ravens coming off a win to the St. Louis Rams. But I have a bone to pick with your university. You know, one of my favorite weeks of the year was Big East basketball tournament at Madison Square Garden. Syracuse is out. The Big East is in shambles right now. And, you know, if you're going to talk to Syracuse this evening, I love them because I'm applying to the school. But Syracuse basketball going to the ACC has just killed me.
It does sound sacrilegious. You kind of feel that they've abandoned the Big East, and you know Armageddon is here. The world is lost. I just think overall the landscape of college football has dictated to all other sports what you want to do, and when you look at the different universities, the different university presidents trying to gain more revenue for their schools, they realize that if you have a stadium with 50,000+ seats, and at the same time, if you can go to another stadium that has that or greater as well and are consistently sold out, at the same time, if you have a place in which you can televise your games and use those different regional markets to hype up your said conference, then that means that's revenue that is going to be generated. And ultimately, they can't look at a 12 to 15, maybe 20,000 seat stadium at most with basketball, even though basketball has a lot of games, but they can't look at that as saying that's going to be something where they can rely on. So you got a combination of combining leagues, and I think for the ACC, you know, we saw that earlier a few years back when Virginia Tech, Boston College, and Miami all bolted for the ACC, and Syracuse and Pitt now are following right behind them, and the fallout of that is that we lose out on great tradition as far as Big East basketball.
We'll talk about the tale of the two Ravens teams that I've seen so far this season. In week 1 and 3, they were blowing out people, and then in week 2, they didn't bring their best performance against the Tennessee Titans.
No, they didn't, and it was kind of shocking because I thought this team really, knew that it was on a mission, and they knew that they had to go out and perform week to week because they were going to have that mark on their chest as, whoa, this team is going to be a good team, therefore we got to bring our A game. Well, Tennessee got the memo. They certainly realized they stunk it up versus Jacksonville. I think Mike Munchak really wanted to motivate his guys, which he did, to open up the season at home and play much better, play more inspired. And I'm sure he probably put on the tape and showed just how dominant this Baltimore Ravens team really is. And they played up to that level, whereas Baltimore failed to live up to that standard of excellence. Now, I guess the aftermath of it is this, that the Rams were at the mercy of a Ravens team that was ready to prove that, look, what you guys saw in Pittsburgh, that was no aberration. This is for real. We know what we're doing. We know that we can be an explosive defense, a dominating defense, and I think part of what came out of that Tennessee loss was the emergence of Joe Flacco throwing the football as opposed to it being run first. They were throwing it and making big plays via Torrey Smith, the young rookie wide receiver who had his first 3 catches of his career go for touchdowns. And they weren't just the kind where it's like, oh, a little dink touchdown. No, it were big one-on-one matchups, and he won, and he made the defensive secondary pay. That's something where I look at this team as a team on the uptick and put that second week of the season behind them. They're going to have some games where, yeah, they're going to come out on the short side of it. No team is perfect, but make no mistake about it, I think we're going to see more of the Steelers game and the Rams game rather than that Titans game.
The most intriguing matchup to me this week in this Sunday Night Football game is the play of the Ravens receiving core against the Jets secondary. Break down that matchup for me.
Well, yeah, we all know that it's all about Darrelle Revis and who he matches up on, and certainly we know what Cromartie is going to bring to the table. I'll bet he's a little banged up right now, but I think, with Cam Cameron, what he can do, and I know this Jets defense is kind of reeling after really getting whooped up on by the Raiders, and the Raiders just physically just ran up and down the field on them using their speed and also beating them at the point of attack as far as their offensive line versus that defensive front by the Jets. I think that Cam Cameron has to be creative in how he wants to go about attacking this defense and really getting after them. And I know that Anquan is going to be the guy and probably will have Darrelle Revis on him. As much as we want to talk about Torrey Smith, basically Anquan was targeted 14 times last week, so we know he's the go-to guy. But that being said, I think there are some matchups to be had with the two tight ends and Ed Pitta and Dennis Dixon. I think both of those guys are really coming on well and erasing any thoughts of, boy, we need Todd Heap, who is now playing out in Arizona. This is a good, strong, very big play, a lot of depth offense, and now it's about being in the right position to take advantage of what that aggressive Jets defense can do.
We're talking to the Missile and Q. Do you think we'll see more of a running game compared to a passing game this week for the Ravens? The Jets defense was not good last week against Darren McFadden. I would imagine Ray Rice gets a ton of carries this week.
Yeah, I think the one thing you look at with that defensive front is that they can be exploited to the outside. I know Darren McFadden on the 170-yard run literally broke contain. They weren't able to corral him. And a home run threat like that, you got to keep him tackling from the outside in and allow your help from the inside to come and bring down an explosive back like that. What I love about Ray's game, he can run it between the tackles and still get those big plays. But he's also versatile enough out in the open field via the passing game to make big plays too. I referenced back to last year's game when the Jets and I think it was a Monday night opener.
It was.
The Ravens and those guys opened up, and I literally remember it just being a back-and-forth battle. I think this year, because of what Joe Flacco was all about, it's not going to be as back and forth, juggernaut versus juggernaut as far as defense is concerned. I think his offensive line is very strong, very competent, that we'll see a mix of run and pass and not have it be, 234 yards the Raiders put up on them. They got to do that same model. I think that it's a combination of both.
Impression so far with Ricky Williams in silver and purple and black?
Yeah, no question about it. I think Ricky Williams has been a big help to Ray Rice's game, and I think Ricky Williams will be the first to tell you that he likes it here as well. He likes the way in which Wilbur Montgomery, the Ravens running backs coach, and how he goes about teaching Ricky the little details of improving his play. So I think overall he really has fit in very, very well in this team's running scheme.
We're talking to number 87, former Baltimore Ravens receiver, where he won a Super Bowl championship. Also had a big 44-yard pass where he caught it from Trent Dilfer in that Super Bowl. But Q, let's look at the Jets' offensive line here. Wayne Hunter has not been great. He has been spun around like a rotating door. Nick Mangold may not play this week at center. How important is it for the Ravens' front seven to come out right away and get pressure on Mark Sanchez, who, by the way, isn't the healthiest of quarterbacks this week with a broken nose?
Yeah, I tell you what, I can say for certain they know that what Matt Hasselbeck did now is on film. And Matt Hasselbeck was very difficult to get down. He got rid of the ball, did a lot of quick passing, and it made for a long day for that defense. Now that that's out there on film, I think it's about going out and attacking the quarterback and creating penetration, not letting him sit back in the pocket. Now, that's an easier task than done. Certainly, yeah, you talk about Nick Mangold being out and injuries to that offensive front. I think D-line-wise, you're seeing the D-line really, really starting to come into its own. And I thought what they did to Sam Bradford, wow, I think Sam Bradford's still in the cold tub trying to ice himself down with all the hits that he took. I know that Mark Sanchez is a growing quarterback in this league, but I also believe that with the pressure that can be brought upon him by this Ravens defensive front, it will limit the opportunities that they will have from a receiving core of making plays on the secondary that is kind of coming back into its full strength as well. They're still missing their stud guy in Jimmy Smith, who they're expecting big things out of. They just put Dominique Foxworth on IR because of his knee issues. and I think Chris Carr came back and played somewhat in the Rams game. But this is a secondary that has held up well, although there's going to be a big challenge come Sunday night versus the Jets.
How do the Ravens usually fare defensively against the tight end? Because I know watching many Jet games throughout the course of the year, Sanchez loves to implement the play of number 81, Dustin Keller, especially in the second half.
Every quarterback has their security blanket, and I think Dustin Keller is that security blanket. And
Agreed.
Make no mistake about it, moving around the middle of the football field is something where a quarterback, if he can get the ball out to a good tight end, it makes life long for a linebacker. I think if there was ever a weakness, if you will, that has been showing up on film is that middle of the football field where the linebackers take their drops, and I think Dustin Keller can take advantage of that. But again, it's all about pressure, and if the Ravens can't create pressure, then it's a moot point whether or not Dustin Keller can have a big day.
We're talking to Qadry Ismail and Q. Derek Mason returns to Baltimore this week. How do you think he will be perceived by the fans?
Oh, they're going to love him. I think they realize that he was a strong player on the field and a great guy off the field in the community. Derek Mason, certainly when you look at his play, produced many a victory for this Ravens team, helped groom Joe Flacco. So I don't think it'll be anything negative. I think that he'll certainly be welcome. But once the whistle blows, it's all about football, and I don't see it a scenario where it's like, oh, good for us, we have Derek Mason back. No, get him, go get him. I think it's going to be one of those scenarios.
By the way, the picture I have up of you right now where you could view us out on Shovio.com is the reception you were getting when they honored the Super Bowl championship team that you guys won. And your hands are up in the air, you're all jacked up. Who will get a louder reception? That moment that you had last season or Derek Mason when they introduced him in the pregame?
Oh, man, I probably would get the larger and louder ovation simply because these fans, they realize that the Jets are standing in their way. Whereas they realize, hey, Qadry Ismail, he won a Super Bowl championship, so let's not get it twisted. We don't want him to feel too comfortable. We know that it is all about Qadry Ismail and that broadcast that he will be putting on and helping us out, as opposed to you sitting there and next thing you know, the Jets are winning because of Derek Mason and what he's all about.
Q, I never got your opinions on Plaxico Burress. How do you think he will fare this year with gangrene?
So far, so good. I think, for him, he's done pretty good. I think that ultimately, when you look at, what he can bring to the table as a veteran quarterback, or not a veteran quarterback, a veteran wide receiver for a young quarterback, I think that, he inside the sticks, he's a playmaker, and you saw that against the Raiders. I believe it was a inside the 20 touchdown that he had, and at the same time, you also see his downfield blocking, which he wasn't exactly known for in his time with the Giants. But again, he's doing his part. He's excited about being back out there on the football field, and good for him. I like to see guys who are really full of second chance opportunities and taking full advantage of it by realizing and going out there and how do I say it? He's not sitting there thinking that this should be given to him, but he realized that it is a privilege to be in the National Football League.
And Q, you played with a plethora of offenses in the league. And last week, 2 weeks ago, Deion Grant of the Giants was accused of faking an injury. You've been on the offensive side of the front. When your offense was killing teams, did you ever notice a defensive player just randomly lie down and try to fake an injury?
We wanted a no-huddle offense. So I know that, the times we would do it, it really wasn't too bad. But those guys, it was hilarious. It looked like a bunch of snipers just took out half the Giants' defense as they were falling to the ground. I've seen it before. I think it is Bush League. I think that, there's gamesmanship, and then there's, kind of crossing that line, if you will. I know ultimately it is something where it is tough to really say whether or not a guy is injured or not, but if you kind of look at the game and the way in which he goes down during that spot of the game or that portion of the game, I'm sure the league, if something like that comes about again for whatever other team that will be facing an up-tempo style of offense, that they'll probably come down heavy on him.
I think the NFL got really lucky in week 1 with the kickoff returns, especially starting one out on opening night. But in weeks 2 and 3, the kickoff game has been very pedestrian. Do you think the NFL is basically eliminating the kickoff?
You know, at first I thought that, but then Randall Cobb changed my mind. I think that what you're going to see is the 5 yards deep into the end zone is now the new goal line. We used to stand at about the goal line, and depending upon the strength of the kicker, we would, if it was a big-time kicker, heck, sometimes I'd be about a yard deep, or sometimes, 3 yards up, or even at the 5-yard line because the kicker wasn't a very good kicker. But now I think the new line is that 5 yards deep in the end zone, and guys are confident that, look, if this guy kicks it short, which is that 5-yard mark, then I'm going to take it out. If the guy is kicking it, obviously, out of the end zone, 8-9 yards deep, then so be it. I'm gonna keep it in. But, yeah, the coverage team, as they slow down because they're seeing the ball go into the end zone, then I think that's where the big play can happen. But there'll be a lot of touchbacks. But the moment you sleep, I think that's the moment where there's going to be a big play that's going to happen. So I'm excited about it. That it isn't totally washed away.
We're talking to WBAL's very own Qadry Ismail and Q. Last question here on the way out. Let's put you in the role of Andy Reid. First off, we'd have to make your stomach much bigger, but would you play Michael Vick this week? Because I certainly would not. You're going up against a weak 49ers team, and, I would not risk the battered Michael Vick.
I think I would tell my offensive lineman, look, the dude needs better protection. As much as I want to rest him, as much as I want you guys to get better with him in there. And we need to, as a team, look at the bigger picture of having Michael Vick in there. I think it's good for his psyche, number one, to be able to finish a game. And obviously that, I'm sure, is weighing on his mind as far as, I'm always getting injured. Let me go ahead and try to complete a 16-game season, plus try to push this team over the top and make it to the playoffs. But ultimately, I think if I'm Andy Reid, outside of trying to be on some sort of weight loss program and motivate myself that way, I think, it's motivating my offensive line. Look, you guys, listen, here's what we're going to do. If you guys protect Michael this week, I'm telling you, I think what I'm going to do is probably lose about maybe 10, 15 pounds. Every week that you guys make sure things go well, then I'm going to go ahead and, hook it up, and everything will be well. I'm going to lose weight as you guys protect him. That's what they're going to do.
Hey, have you ever practiced that in front of the mirror?
No, that was right off the cuff, special to the Zach show.
Q, you're the best. Check him out on WBAL this week. He'll be on the call. Thank you so much. It's always fun to talk sports with you.
Absolutely. Appreciate it, man.